XRP's gone on a little bit of a run over the last 24 hours. Nothing completely insane, but outperforming other top coins. It's up close to 5% over the last 24 hours at $2.60. Just a little bit before I started recording, it hits 24-hour high of $2.62. You can also see here that XRP has reclaimed the number 4 spot by market cap, taking that back from Tether. And I still think it's silly to have Tether listed amongst cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ether, XRP go down the list that have volatile prices. If it's pegged to $1, maybe put that in a different category and by default don't include that. That's always been a pet peeve of mine because it's just a different animal. And look, Live CoinWatch, they can do whatever the hell they want with their website. Same for CoinMarketCap and all their competitors. They could throw other assets in here that are not like XRP, Ether, and Bitcoin, for example. They could throw in stocks. They could choose. I mean, it's their website. They can do it if they want. They could throw in precious metal prices, gold and silver. They could also throw in stable coins, and they unfortunately did that part. They don't have stocks in here by default. And if they wanted to have all of those assets included, add that functionality. I'm just saying by default, don't show it because nobody comes to Live CoinWatch to see what the price of Tether is. Nobody gives a damn. So outside of that, yeah, XRP was already number 4 by market cap, but now it has officially taken it. So you'll love to see it. But I'm going to share with you perspective, including one analyst who says that XRP is definitely leading this cycle, and there are tons of analysts that are making large price predictions. So sit tight for this one. There's no shortage of double-digit price predictions from chart analysts that I follow. And XRP sitting here as the number 1 performing coin in the top 10 coins by market cap over the last 24 hours. You'll love to see it. But before going to market, although, yeah, you can see a lot of green here, mostly sideways price action. I mean, Bitcoin's just at $111,529. Here's a post from chart analyst Mustache. This is the crypto total market cap excluding the top 10 coins by market cap. So altcoins. He says, altcoins have been in the accumulation phase for almost 2 years, and people are talking about a bear market. They haven't even broken out upwards. The 4-year cycle theory is too well known, except that this cycle is taking longer. Alt season hasn't been canceled. Now, add this analyst to the pile of analysts that I follow, which just keeps increasing, that believe, actually, yeah, the 4-year cycle, it's now broken. This thing's going to be extending into 2026. Now, Raoul Paul, Julian Bettel, and TechDev, they're the earliest analysts I followed that were calling for this. They were talking about this, if not late last year, it might have been late last year, but certainly in the beginning part of 2025. And they were making their case for that, which I've highlighted many times. It has to do with the debt refinancing cycle, which is impacting global liquidity, and also when the business cycle ultimately peaks. And so I've talked about it at length. I don't want to go too in depth in this video, but that's it in a nutshell. And I'm just noticing, and not surprisingly, you get to the end of 2025, you either have to believe that we're entering a bear market, or you have to believe this cycle's actually is lengthening. And there's a compelling thesis for that argument that was, again, articulated by those analysts I just cited, but again, in the beginning part of this year, and maybe even late last year. So they didn't come up with that thesis just because we're running out of days in 2025. They're like, hey, here are the metrics that caused the 4-year cycle, and these metrics have shifted, which makes us think that this cycle might peak potentially halfway through 2026. So if that's the world we're living in now, that just fine by me. That means the best is yet ahead. Why would I even be bothered by that? It's barely a delay. It's totally fine. But again, I just wanted to mention this because it's another analyst who's like, yeah, we're going to have alt season. That's how every market cycle ends, with that euphoric top. And it does mean the cycle's lengthening. So I think that's going to increasingly become a popular perspective as time passes here, unless we actually enter a bear market, but I'm not counting on that. Here's a post from chart analyst Tony Severino. He says, not going to lie, the S&P 500 looks like it's going to turn that blow-off top idea into a reality. 7 days left to close like this or better. And so here's another analyst that does believe that the S&P 500 absolutely is going to rampage higher. If that happens, it's crazy to think that eventually the Russell 2000 wouldn't break out against it. And of course, if it does, which historically would be the norm, then altcoins are going to go crazy. We've never had an alt season without the Russell 2000 breaking out. And that has to do with investors' risk tolerances, because Russell 2000 is small cap stock. So if you have a greater appetite for risk, you're more likely to invest in that and also go further out the risk curve in the crypto asset class. which will be great for us as XRP holders. I also checked out the latest newsletter from Crypto Insight UK. The whole thing's fantastic. Great stuff about XRP, but there's just a small piece of a snippet of here that I wanted to cover in this because he's talking about a big part of this actually is macro stuff and having to do with the 4-year cycle versus the 5-year cycle and when we're going to break out. And he does seem to find the thesis compelling in the same way that I do. There's this idea that perhaps it's going to be more of a 5-year cycle rather than 4, because the underlying metrics that cause the 4-year cycle have shifted. Right? And so here's what Crypto Insight UK wrote. It says, if we go back to what we discussed with the Russell 2000, the third tap on all-time highs, and apply the 5-year leg that Raoul Pal suggests with debt rolling over a 5-year cycle rather than a 4-year one. That's what I was just talking about a second ago. Says it gives us an exact date of November 3rd for a potential breakout in the Russell. I'm not saying it will play out perfectly to the day, but that's exactly how it happened 5 years ago. It's another strong indication of growing breadth in the markets and further supports the idea that altcoins could continue higher from here. And I will also pause to note here, that is exactly when XRP started breaking out 5 years ago. It was the beginning part of November. Now, in the days or maybe a week or so leading up to that, I was citing on my channels like, guys, I'm noticing that pretty much all of the XRP chart analysts that I follow are saying XRP looks primed to go. And I noted at the time, they don't normally all just magically agree that it's about to happen. But when they do, they're usually right. And they absolutely were correct about that. And it happened to be at the time when the Russell 2000 started to break out. So even if it's not directly on November 3rd, even if the timing's a bit off, I'm still in the camp that is betting on the Russell 2000 breaking out and altcoins, including XRP, ultimately following it. And as soon as I see a ton of analysts all agreeing that XRP is about to blow, when it's pretty much all of them, they're almost always right. So I'm going to be sharing that on this channel. And sometimes the improbable happens. And so you could have just about all of them saying the same thing or same or similar thing and they're wrong. That's not usually how it goes down though. Anyway, he continues. He says, again, I'm not saying it will play out perfectly to the day, but that's how it happened 5 years ago. It's another strong indication of growing breadth in the market and further supports the idea that altcoins could continue higher from here. The discussion of a short-term top being in for gold ties in perfectly with what we've talked about before regarding the potential rotation of capital from gold into crypto and altcoins. If gold begins to cool off after its parabolic run, that capital doesn't just disappear. Historically, when one major asset class starts to top out, liquidity often seeks the next area of opportunity. Given the setup we're seeing across crypto, I think there's a strong case that some of that capital will rotate into digital assets, particularly altcoins that have yet to fully run. And so this is a major point. There's a good reason that I'm highlighting this. And so, of course, gold has rocketed. It's gone on a parabolic rally, the likes of which we haven't seen in several decades. Truly impressive for gold, right? Because, I mean, you go back half a decade, it was worth like, what, $1,800, $1,900. We saw a recent all-time high above $4,300 for gold per ounce. And it's fallen a little bit since then. So maybe it's cooling off. And I'm not in the market of making predictions in terms of where the top of any asset is. I don't pretend to know. But this idea of liquidity cycling, yeah, profit being taken from gold and then chasing something else that hasn't run. Yes, that is what humans do. That is absolutely what humans do. It's, you have a parabola and then it cools off. And then that's pretty much that. Markets find tops. They find tops. And then they got to go into a bear market, move sideways, and then make a run at some point in the future for another new all-time high, even if it's years or decades later. That's how this works. That is how humans behave, which is why when you apply that logic and that understanding that human behavior, it's human nature. It's in our DNA. It causes humans to behave like this. When you apply that to what happens in crypto, then you recognize every single cycle, Bitcoin goes first, and it finally, eventually, every single cycle hits an all-time high, and then people argue about where that actually is when you're going through that process. But then profit is taken, and it is rotated into something else. Rotation does happen, and it goes into coins that haven't run yet. This is human nature. Humans are not going to stop acting like humans. Outside of a black swan event, I find it highly improbable that we're just not going to have an alt season because of reasons. Humans just aren't going to act like humans act anymore. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't find that compelling at all. I do believe we're going to have that blow off top. This is how people behave. Then he says, and finally, Bitcoin dominance looks like this, and I project that it goes lower than most people expect. This cycle, the structure looks like an ascending wedge, as you can see when zoomed in, and I think this is a continuation pattern to the downside. When you combine all of these things together, you can see why I feel genuinely excited about the market in the short term. I'm not saying there aren't risks, and of course, we still need the US government to reopen and for some of this expected liquidity to actually start flowing into the market. But if those things line up, I honestly don't think being a bear is the right place to be right now. Crypto Insight UK get a little golf clap here. I'm a fan. Absolutely. That is correct. That's the right take as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. He doesn't either. It's about probability of outcomes. And yeah, I think you are going to see ultimately that rotation, profit taking, and it's going to roll into risk on assets. And that's historically normal, by the way. Gold runs first, although it's run to more historic levels now. I mean, this is like a truly historic run. We haven't seen anything like this in decades. But even before this historic run, just go back to other cycles, gold did run to whatever degree. And then Bitcoin and crypto ran when it was going into its final blow. So history rhymes with itself, folks. I won't be surprised to see that happen. Here's a post from Chart Analyst down. It says, XRP, after the wipeout 2 weeks ago, we now have very clean levels to work with. So he's talking about obviously the liquidation event a couple Fridays ago. It says the most important level to be watching for any type of bullish reclaim is the $2.73 level. This was the breakdown level that price was holding for months, and the 6-month VWAP also sits right there. We've seen some nice buy pressure over the last day, but we must keep eyes on that level. Price is still just in a massive range that was developed over 8 months ago with very wide bounds. So it's nice. It's nice to see that XRP has run up a bit. I hope we see a continuation of that. If the whole market's going to start trending upward, XRP is just going to outperform. I mean, that's what I believe is most probable anyway. It's been so artificially suppressed for years. Now it's free. That son of a gun's going to keep running. Here's a post from chart analyst Alex Clay. He says, XRP looks good to bring a new all-time high once again. Bounced off the support of ascending channel on weekly. XRP is definitely leading this cycle. And look at this. You can see he's going back to, you can see the breakout here, obviously November of last year. He's pointing out that ever since then, we've been in this ascending channel. So we're ascending and we're waiting for the breakout to finally enter the face melting price discovery phase. That should be what's next. If the market's going to go, you better believe XRP is going to be a part of it. Here's a post from chart analyst altcoin Gordon. It says, absolutely perfect move up from the right shoulder. XRP is going to send and nothing will stop it. And so there's another analyst, and he's one of the more popular analysts in the space, 830,000 followers on X. He firmly believes this thing's going to rocket to the upside. And this is what I keep finding. It's very difficult to find analysts who are willing to put their necks on the line and vote that XRP is actually just not going to perform from here. People saying that are effectively non-existent. They're like unicorns. So very difficult to find perspectives like that. Here's a post from chart analyst Ether Nason. He says, say it back, XRP. The downtrend structure that has persisted since 2021 has been broken, and a parabolic rise has been initiated following a retest. Currently, the price is continuing its reaccumulation process between the supply and demand zones. An upward breakout of the supply zone will trigger the next parabolic run. And so that supply zone, he's talking about a level closer to where the all-time high is. And it's just a matter, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a matter of time until we ultimately get there. I do believe we're going to see that face-melting price discovery. I just don't pretend to know when it's going to happen. But that's been my bet ever since, we saw the all-time high for XRP January 4th, 2018, and we clearly entered a bear market after that. My bet ever since then was, at some point we're going to see that type of price action again in XRP. Now, I think without the SEC crap that happened last cycle, it would have happened 4 years ago, but we don't get to control that. I'm a big boy, so I've endured it just like you guys have. But here we are, and I still firmly believe it's the same bet that XRP will enter the face melting zone. And part of my bet back in the 2018 bear market was XRP is going to see a new all-time high. That was also part of my bet. Now that part's happened. So we're validated, we've been vindicated, but I'm telling you, as long as we do see, a top for this asset class in the way that we normally have, which is to say a euphoric alt season, of course XRP is going to be a part of that. Of course it is. It's stupid to think otherwise. It's going to melt faces, folks. It's coming. And the final surge for XRP historically, it is way more impressive than the first one in terms of United States dollars or whatever your fiat currency of choice is. Here's a post from Crypto. It says XRP locked in. When your favorite technical analysis analyst, so TA analyst, that's redundant, but anyway, TA analyst says that they're bearish on XRP, show them this chart. The blue line represents the 100 EMA on the monthly time frame, which is currently the low point at 85 cents for the next bear market. Tell them that Crypto is willing to ride this bag down to 85 cents with glory and pride if we enter a bear market. But first, we're set to change our lives and others at $10. So I'm not in the price prediction game myself. $10 is not crazy, folks. Double-digit price action is not a crazy thing to speculate about for this market cycle. It just isn't. Like, we've seen moves like that historically in crypto, and knowing that XRP has been so artificially suppressed and it's still playing catch-up, that makes it extra crazy to think that this is unreasonable to speculate about. Here's a post from Chartner. I actually got a few from him. It says XRP's resistance levels to clear note. This is the first 55 WEMA retest since Q4 2024. I expect it to act as a launch pad. Maybe consolidate another week before the breakout. Let's see. Well, that's kind of fascinating, because if the Russell 2000 is going to break out where it did 5 years ago, doesn't mean it will. I'm not predicting it will, and I don't know. It's what Crypto Inside UK was talking about, though. But if it does, that would light, and mind you, when that happened 5 years ago, that's when XRP broke out last time. This would be the same thing just about. Yeah, you're talking about a week from now. That's it. And if the Russell 2000 goes, yeah, that's about November 3rd. That would be interesting. So he's just saying, maybe another week or so before the breakout. That would be interesting if this ends up being correct. Here's another one from Chart Nerd. He says, XRP has been in vertical accumulation since January 2025. And folks, this is what I was mentioning with that other post. You can see, look at this. It's ascending here. It has been ever since January. He says, the coming breakout will be explosive. The 1.618 fib extension on this move points towards $5 to $6 once resistance blocks in the $2.60 range are cleared. And that's obviously about where we are right now. So he thinks once this really starts going, yeah, you're going to see, not that it would peak here. He doesn't think it's going to peak there. But in the short term, then, $5 to $6 XRP. Just a matter of time, folks. And here's the final one from him. He said, XRP $27 target and market low confluence with the 3-month Gaussian channel indicator. It's worth noting that the 1.618 fib extension target is how I managed to attain the $27 target. In the prior 2017 cycles, when XRP broke its all-time high, it surged past its 1.618. There, I don't think asking for $27 per XRP should be deemed as unattainable, especially with SEC clearance and bullish developments in the last year. Well, yeah, so I will just say if there's enough money sloshing around the space, it's plausible that you could see $27 XRP this market cycle. I don't pretend to know if that's going to happen this cycle, but it ain't crazy. That is not unreasonable to speculate about. Here's a post from chart analyst Cantonese Cat. Oh, he thinks XRP is going up to that range also, potentially. XRP monthly, resistance/support bullish flip above 0.886 log fib, which favors all-time highs. And that would be $2.25 level, of course, as you can see cited here. It says higher possible fib target levels shown. So if you look at the fib levels, you can see what he's talking about. These would be key levels where he thinks it would make sense to peak. And you can burst through a couple of these levels, but he thinks somewhere around one of these is where you're going to peak. So you could see $8.29, see $13.38, or $26.63. So that's pretty close to what Chart Nerd was talking about. And that's the 1.618. That's what Chart Nerd was saying. Actually, XRP went through that fib level in the past. So it's not crazy, folks. It just isn't crazy. Here's a post from chart analyst Freedom by 40, XRP. One of the best looking charts out there, in my opinion. I think green is very doable. Pink would be a stretch, but it's still possible in my opinion. And so for those of you not looking at the screen, I'll note that when he says green are being very doable, he's talking about a price range that is upwards of $8.39, which is more on the conservative side. But then the pink level, which he says is a stretch but possible, will be up to $13.36. So he happens to be an analyst who's very bullish on XRP, but more on the conservative side in terms of price expectations. That seems closer to like what chart analyst Bobby A is expecting. He thinks maybe closer to like $13 as a peak, which, I'm willing to bet most people listening would be absolutely thrilled if that's the case, because the people that are listening to my channel right now, you're not like the fly-by-night, people of interest. Like most of you anyway, have been here for years and years, meaning you bought XRP dirt cheap. So if it goes to $13, I'm willing to bet most people listening right now in late October 2025 will be thrilled if XRP goes to $13, anywhere around there. Now, the people that jump in later, as the mania picks up and it draws in new investors, they're not going to be happy with that. They're going to be, praying that the price predictions for like $100 XRP pan out, which is not going to happen this market cycle. It could happen in the future, but this market cycle, no, I'm just being honest with you. I do not believe that's remotely plausible. I don't. Happy to be wrong. I mean, if I'm wrong, fine, but I'm very confident I'm not. But I do think that most of you probably nod your heads like, yeah, 13 would be pretty freaking wild for me. I mean, think about this. You understand the cycle low for XRP, the price? It occurred in June of 2022. XRP bottomed this market cycle then at 28 cents. So if it goes to $13, pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. Here's a post from chart analyst Javon Marks. He says XRP current target $4.80, and that's the short term. He's not saying it would peak there. He believes much higher. Here's a post 2 days ago from chart analyst Ali Martinez. XRP was $2.38 at the time. He said TD sequential flashes a buy signal on XRP. Looks like the rebound is about to begin. So here we are 2 days later, and it's moving up. I don't know what the price is by the time you're watching this. We're talking short term here. But hopefully this is the real deal. It actually does start rampaging. But if we have to wait a little bit longer, it's fine. We do, look, be an adult like I am. We don't choose when the market goes, but we do get to choose whether or not we have exposure to the market when it goes. And it is going to go. We just don't know when. Here's a post from chart analyst Dark Defender. For the sake of time, I won't read the whole thing, but he did write in part, everybody will switch bullish very soon after XRP breaks the orange resistance. And so that's a line right here. He's calling for us to have a key level hit at $5.85 and then also $10.47 per XRP. And he doesn't think we're going to stop there. He's also talked about a cycle peak being closer to like $18. Here's a post from CW. He says short positions on XRP have been destroyed. And he posted that this morning. You'll love to see it. Like, why are you idiot sticks playing with leverage? If you just hold spot XRP and then just wait and be patient like adults, you get life-changing wealth. You get thousands of percentage point gains if you hold long enough. But you need to play with leverage, and then you need to be wrong as XRP trends up and to the right. Like, okay, what a bunch of damn fools. He also shared this. He says the sell wall for XRP exists at $2.85. So if we do get up closer to that, expect some resistance. Might not plow through it in the first attempt. But regardless, things looking pretty damn good right now. The best is yet ahead. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea.